My name is Christina Taylor, and welcome back to my channel. Are you a parent that is desiring to protect your children from the pain of your childhood? If so, I've got you covered with some really great tips that will help you on this journey. Every human being, regardless of their gender, male or female, has feelings and emotions. When babies are born, they have one primary method of communication, and that's crying, to let you know that they have a need. Maybe they have a dirty diaper, maybe they're hungry, maybe they just want to be held and comforted. Whatever their need is, they cry. And you as the parent respond to figure out what it is that they need, and you meet the need. As your children get older, they learn a new way of communication, which is verbally. They learn to express their needs and wants through verbal communication. However, your children don't know and or understand that they have emotional needs. And they don't know that their emotional needs are going unmet. They don't know they're going unmet, but they can feel it. There is a feeling that you can feel as a child and as an adult when your emotional needs are unmet. It creates this sense of loneliness, this deep longing for connection, for intimacy, to be seen and to be heard. As children, it's important that parents are able to meet their children's emotional needs. However, many parents are unable to meet their children's emotional needs because their emotional needs were unmet. This happens to be true for me. My emotional needs were not met in childhood, not because my parents didn't want to meet my emotional needs, but they didn't know I had emotional needs, and they didn't know that they were not meeting them. They didn't know that they had emotional needs or that they were unmet. And the same thing is true for their parents and their parents' parents. There's just this unawareness that has dated back so many centuries that human beings have continued to go without having their emotional needs met. And when your emotional needs are not met, it creates this internal experience where you feel lonely, you feel disconnected, you feel like you don't belong. And it's this internal experience that you can't explain because you don't have the language for it. And the experience it's internal, it's invisible. You can't see it, you can't hear it, but you can feel it. But you can't explain it because you don't have the language or other tools to do so. And for many of us, if we've grown up in a home with parents that are unable to meet our emotional needs, there's no communication within our home about anything about emotional needs being met or unmet. So this experience that you're having on the inside as a child where your emotional needs are not being met, it tends to feel like it's an experience that only you are having because it's happening inside of you. You can't see it, you can't hear it, but you can feel it. There's this discomfort, there's this longing, this desire for connection, but you don't have it and you don't know how to express what it is that you're experiencing. You don't know how to communicate that you have these uncomfortable feelings on the inside and you don't know what to do with them. And because it's so uncomfortable and you lack the language, tools, and skills to share what it is that you're feeling on the inside, many children will just keep that experience on the inside, meaning they don't ever express it to anybody because they don't know how and they think it's only happening to them. It's important, it is extremely important that parents understand that your children are having experiences every day that are external. They are seeing things, hearing things, and they are having experiences that are engaging them in various different ways. And at the same time, they are having internal experiences that are creating feelings and emotions on the inside. And because it is an invisible experience, they don't know how to come to you and communicate that they are having these experiences. So, as parents, it is very important that you acknowledge any painful experiences that you have had in your childhood or in your adulthood, but especially those in your childhood that have negatively impacted you emotionally. And you work intentionally to heal from them, because it's going to help open you up emotionally to become available to yourself emotionally and also to your children. It's going to help you as the parent learn how to navigate your emotions. It's going to help you get connected back to the internal experiences that you got disconnected from in your childhood because your parents didn't know how to meet your emotional needs. And when you grow up in environments where your parents don't know how to meet your emotional needs, there is a tendency to suppress, deny, dismiss, distort those internal experiences because you don't know what to do with them. You don't know how to process them. You don't understand them. So you continue to move forward in life as if those internal experiences are not real, but they are very much real. And as a parent, it is of extreme importance that you intentionally work to heal any experiences that you've had in your childhood that have negatively impacted you emotionally. If you were sexually abused, if you had a parent that was incarcerated, if your parents were drug addicts, alcoholics, maybe they were physically abusive to each other, or maybe they were physically abusive to you. Whatever experiences you had in your childhood that made you possibly feel rejected, abandoned, like you don't matter, like you're invisible, like you're not good enough. Maybe it made you feel like you're not worthy. Any experiences that you had in your childhood that negatively impacted you, those experiences are very important for you as the parent to process. Because as long as they remain unprocessed, there are certain aspects of your being, your humanness, that you are disconnected from. And as long as you remain disconnected from certain aspects of your humanness, it limits the ways in which you are able to show up for your children to help them meet and satisfy their emotional needs. Your children, they need your help to help them process what it is that they're experiencing, to help them process the different thoughts that they're having on the inside that they don't know how to process. Feeling afraid is a real feeling, and to a child, it can feel extremely scary. Because when you're afraid, especially as a child, sometimes you're not able to comprehend that what you're afraid of isn't real and that you shouldn't really be afraid of it because it's not a real threat. And sometimes what you're afraid of may actually be a real threat. And because you're a child, you may not realize that this is a real threat. And I should really respond differently because this is a threat that could be hurtful and or harmful to my well-being. It's important that you allow your children to have a safe space to come to you, the parent, with all of their feelings and emotions. No feelings, no emotions are off limits. They are all acceptable. They are all okay. And it's important as the parent that you heal yourself so you can get to a place where you, the parent, are okay with all of your feelings and emotions so that you can show up to help your children be okay with all of their feelings and emotions. I know for myself personally, I was so disconnected from my feelings and emotions because my emotional needs weren't met in my childhood. And I learned to suppress them, to deny them, dismiss them with unhealthy coping mechanisms because I didn't know what to do with them. I was having this internal experience on the inside that was uncomfortable, embarrassing, and I felt like I was the only one having it. And I didn't know how to communicate to my parents or anybody else what I was experiencing because we never had conversations about feelings or emotions. There was no emotional language within my household. And I developed these unhealthy coping mechanisms, and I was cut off and disconnected from certain feelings and emotions. And when I would have certain feelings and emotions, if I felt embarrassed or ashamed, I would suppress those feelings and emotions with unhealthy coping mechanisms. And as I continued to get older and grow into adulthood and eventually became a parent, I was still doing the same thing. And when I became a parent and I was still having these experiences, I was still cut off from these feelings and emotions. And if my daughter said and or did things that triggered these uncomfortable feelings and emotions, it would cause me to behave in ways that were hurtful and or harmful to my daughter. Parents aren't intentionally passing trauma to their children, but we have a lot of resources that are currently available to us in 2025. The internet has given us so many tools, resources, and platforms that allow us to learn, understand, and develop in ways that were not available to our parents. And for this reason, I want to encourage you to make it your personal responsibility to heal yourself from whatever things have hurt you in your lifetime, whether it's in your childhood or adulthood, or maybe it's both. It's important that you, as the parent, heal so that you can show up as the best version of you for your children. When children's emotional needs go unmet, they also develop a level of distrust within themselves, believing that certain things, experiences are not real, and believing that certain things and or experiences are real that aren't real. They're not they're not as equipped to perceive and process their feelings and emotions because they've had experiences that have compromised their emotional integrity, their ability to be honest about the feelings that they are having and why they're having them. They children, when their emotional needs aren't met, it creates these internal experiences that let them know that they're not being accepted for who they are. And over time, they will begin to adapt. They will begin to adapt to the comfort levels of their parents to get their need for connection, their need for feeling like I fit in and feeling like I belong within this family met. And in order for them to do that, they have to start losing authentic pieces and parts of their identity and personality. They will begin to develop unhealthy traits and characteristics like being a people pleaser. They will think that if I place their needs above mine, then it will help me to connect with them. They will learn to suppress their own feelings and emotions because if I suppress my needs and or minimize them, then they will accept me more. And these are very unhealthy behaviors for children to develop and to continue developing throughout their childhood and carry into adulthood because It prevents them from having real healthy emotional connection in other relationships, especially with their children. So, the nuggets, the takeaways that I want to share with you as a parent that is desiring to help protect your children from the pain of your childhood is to first acknowledge the pain that you are experiencing. I know for me, the pain that I began feeling in my childhood around the age of 5, it literally traveled with me all the way into my adulthood. It went on to the journey with me into being a parent. It traveled with me all the way into my 40s until I had a experience in the relationship between myself and my daughter that kind of pushed me into therapy in order to help resolve some challenges I was having in the relationship between myself and my daughter. And as a result of going to therapy, I learned that I was disconnected from my feelings and emotions. There were feelings and emotions that when I experienced them, I would tend to run to comfort foods to suppress the emotional discomfort. I would tend to scroll on social media to bypass and suppress the emotional discomfort. I would tend to smoke weed to bypass and suppress the emotional discomfort. I would turn to alcohol at times to bypass and suppress the emotional discomfort. As human beings, we will find a myriad of different ways that we can suppress, deny, dismiss, distort, bypass the emotional discomfort because we've never learned a healthy way to deal with our feelings and emotions. And for many of us, it starts in childhood. So if you really want to help protect your children from the pain of your childhood, regardless of what it is, I want to encourage you as a parent to go to therapy. I want to encourage you to go to therapy and talk about those painful experiences that you experienced. And I want you to get open and honest with your therapist and learn how to reconnect with the emotional part of yourself. And I want you to really work with your therapist to identify the root cause of the internal emotional discomfort that you're experiencing. Maybe your parent was absent, they weren't in your life. Maybe you developed wounds of rejection, abandonment. Maybe it made you feel like you weren't worthy or you weren't good enough. You should talk to your therapist about those feelings and those emotions and other experiences that are tied to those feelings and emotions to help you get connected back to you so that you can feel, so that you can acknowledge your feelings and emotions and get to a place where you are healthy enough to stop running from them with unhealthy coping mechanisms. And then you really want to dig deeper to identify the root cause, again, which probably stems from your childhood, as I already mentioned, and understand what experiences created these emotional wounds, these invisible wounds on the inside. And you also want to understand when you have these moments where you're feeling triggered, especially in the relationship with your children, but also in other relationship dynamics, you want to work to understand when you're having these experiences and you feel triggered, how are you responding? How are you behaving? What things are you saying and or doing, or maybe not saying or not doing, that is hurtful to your children and to yourself? And you want to work to modify these unhealthy behaviors and habits so that you can get connected back to yourself, so that you can give your children the best version of yourself, the version of yourself that is emotionally connected to you, So your children will be emotionally connected to themselves, able to feel and process their feelings and emotions.